Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Throwing in the Towel. Each week I dive deep into the NFL season and make the tough call on which team it's time to give up on, whether it's due to a string of injuries, a losing streak, or just plain bad luck. Some teams just don't have what it takes to make it to the postseason, and in today's episode I will be throwing in the towel on team number 6. This is the week 6 edition, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more weekly NFL insights and calls. And with that, let's go ahead and get into this week's edition of this week's episode of Throwing in the Towel. And we start in the AFC East, which is represented this week by only the New York Jets. And as just about everyone other than the franchise owner Woody Johnson probably expected, making a coaching change after just 5 weeks wasn't a quick fix. Trading for Davante Adams probably won't be either. Yes, the Jets seem to have a better offensive game plan on Monday night. However, Robert Saleh was reportedly considering making a change that they already made, which was demoting Nathaniel Hackett from play caller and putting Todd Downing in his place to call plays. Inserting Jeff Olmbrick as interim head coach, not a bad idea, but having him pull double duty and not only be the interim head coach but call defensive plays, well, that might not also be working out in their favor after that game against the Bills. Also, the offensive line is still very much a disaster, and Rodgers is still taking hits that he probably shouldn't be taking. Discipline also seemed to be breaking down in that game when they had 11 penalties in that game, although I think most of those were on the refs just throwing unnecessary flags and anything else. Nonetheless, there are still some issues with this team, but perhaps maybe this trade with Davante Adams can help get things back on track, and maybe if Jeff Olbrich can find somebody else to call defensive plays, that might help as well. AFC North, we have a lone representative in this division as well, that being the Cleveland Browns. And had you said before Sunday's matchup between the Eagles and Browns that Cleveland would hold Philly to 20 points, you would think that this team would have been competitive, they would have been in the game, they would have had a chance of winning it, until that is you consider that this is the 2024 Browns, a team that hasn't scored 20 points in a game all season. The Browns continue their bad offensive performance in 2024 against the Eagles. The offensive line continues to be invisible, and now Amari Cooper's been shipped out of town. So I think that says all that needs to be said about where the Browns currently are. Deshaun Watson's still a starter because money. It's essentially that's what it comes down to, is money. The Browns they did this to themselves, and I get people want to see Deshaun Watson bench for Jameis Winston. I don't want to see that. I want to see the Browns you are dumb enough to give this guy a fully guaranteed contract. There's a reason why this has never been done before. You were dumb enough to do it. I don't really care. You deserve to be an absolute. I feel bad for the fans, but hey, you got the Bengals to watch. So, the Browns did this themselves. They got what they deserved. And in the AFC South, no representatives this week. The Colts got a win, the Texans got a win, and the towel's already been thrown in on the Jaguars and the Titans, who lost this past weekend. AFC West, we have the Broncos and the Raiders this week. And for the Raiders, after losing to the Broncos in Week 5, they made a switch at quarterback. Gardner Minshew has been replaced by Aiden O'Connell. I know, very exciting. And the hope is when you make a quarterback change that it provides a spark. Yeah, about that. The Raiders showing in Week 6 was worse than the one in the week before. And to make matters worse, they finally gave up the ghost. So I don't know if that's the right phrase here too, but there's been a lot of trade speculation about Davante Adams ever since Derek Carr got shipped out of town. And sure enough, the Raiders season, I guess, has gone poorly enough to where they finally did trade him away. So now their best player on offense is no longer. Things aren't really looking up for the Raiders at this point, and then again, what can you do when you have Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew as your choices at quarterback? And for the Broncos, this team gained some momentum during their 3-game winning streak, but that surge might have been misleading, or maybe it's just a surge attributed to their defense. While the win over the Buccaneers was an impressive one, the other 2 wins came against the Jets team that had just recently fired its head coach, and the Raiders team that just recently benched its quarterback starting in Week 1. So credit to Bo Nix, he tried to rally in this game, but ultimately was not enough here. So that does it for the division losers in the AFC this week. Now we move on to the division representatives. And as you can see here, we had the lone representative in the East with the Jets and the lone representative in the North with the Browns. And between the Raiders and the Broncos in the West, I went with the Raiders. So of these 3 teams, who represents the AFC this week? Well, you probably know who it is. It's the Cleveland Browns. They are the worst team in the AFC coming out of week 6. Now we move on to the NFC side of things, and we go over to the NFC East, which has the Commanders and Cowboys this week. And for the Cowboys, the offensive line, it was a problem this offseason, and it remains a problem that's only getting worse for this team. Tyler Smith is playing out of position. Tyler Guyton is out of the lineup, Tyler Guyton is out of the lineup because of injury. TJ Bass is playing at left guard. Cooper Beebe is still working on his transition to center, and even Zach Martin, the All-Pro, he had his fair share of struggles against the Lions. Then again, nothing the Cowboys did right, or Cowboys seemingly did nothing right in that game. Their offense was terrible, their defense was terrible. Nothing seems to be clicking for this team at the moment. For the Commanders, there hasn't been a hotter offensive team in the league over the last month than the Commanders, and that has been mostly due to the excellent play of rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. Yes, the Commanders are better so far this season than last, when they finished dead last in total defense. However, that defensive unit remains on the fringe of the bottom 10. It will take another off season before the unit can really improve. Then we go to the NFC North, which no representatives this week, and honestly, this might be the best division in football. The Vikings were on a bye, so they're still undefeated. The Lions, they won, losing Aiden Hutchinson in the process, so kind of a bittersweet win over the Cowboys. The Packers got a win, and the Bears got a win. The Bears have really been improving over the past couple of weeks with Caleb Williams. So now we move to the NFC South, which has a lone representative in the New Orleans Saints. And this team has problems, plural. Over the first couple of weeks of the year, the Saints would score 91 points in a couple of blowout wins. Since then, nowhere even close. They haven't really done much of anything. They were an absolute disaster defensively against Tampa. Spencer Rattler was making his first start in place of injured Derek Carr. He completed just over half of his passes and tossed a couple of interceptions. So while Rattler isn't ready to unseat Derek Carr as a starting quarterback, he played well enough and showed that he could help the Saints pull off a 1 or 2 as a full-on starter. No guarantee that he does, but it's certainly possible. It's not going to help playing in a short week without Chris Olave. That's not going to do him any favors. But maybe after Thursday, he can do that. Then we move to the NFC West with the Seahawks and the Cardinals. And for the Cardinals, some games are just what is commonly called a burn the tape type of game, or burn the tape effort. A team is outclassed on both sides of the ball, and the only thing that can be taken from that contest, a team is outclassed on both sides of the ball, and the only thing that can be taken from the contest is don't play like that again. And that was what Sunday's game at Lambeau Field was for the Cardinals. Just absolutely beaten senseless by the Packers right there. Not a good game for them. And lastly, for the Seahawks, their 3-game winning streak to open the season came against a rookie quarterback making his first career start, a woeful Patriots team, and an injury ravaged Dolphins squad. Given what's taken place since then, it appears that this team is not as good as originally appeared, and that this is more like the mid team that went 9-8 last season. So who knows what the Seahawks really are? All we know is that 3-0 start was a bit misleading. So now we move over to the division representatives. Pretty standard stuff here in the East. I went with the Cowboys over the Commanders, and in the South, the Saints were the lone representative, and in the West, I went with the Cardinals over the Seahawks. And now we move from division representatives to the representative for the NFC this week. Who represents the NFC out of these 3 teams? You can probably take a guess. It's the Arizona Cardinals here. I thought they played worse than the Saints did against the Buccaneers. So with that, we're going to move into the recap through the first 5 weeks, which, as you can see, has the Panthers, who lost to the Falcons, the Giants, who had a tough loss in prime time. Very poor offensive showing against the Bengals. The Titans and Jaguars, as I mentioned earlier, had a couple losses. Titans losing to the Colts. Jaguars losing badly in London, too. So badly that people are saying that if Doug Peterson, the head coach of the Jaguars, doesn't win the next game against the Patriots, that he's out of a job. And then the Patriots, they started Drake May. He did well in his first game, about as well as he could. Ultimately came up short in a losing effort. So with that, we're going to move into this week's team. Who is team number 6 for throwing in the towel? Well, between the Cleveland Browns and the Arizona Cardinals, it's the Cleveland Browns. Ultimately, this team they're just screwed. I mean, the best thing I don't know if there's a best thing they can do, because ultimately you just got to make a change at quarterback, because quarterback is clearly your biggest issue. Unfortunately, cutting your quarterback, while you could do that, would financially cripple you. So you're kind of you're in this unenviable position where you can't really do much of anything. Sure, you could fire the head coach and everybody would know that it wasn't really his fault, that he was just stuck with a quarterback that he couldn't really do anything with. So I don't know if there's an easy fix for the Browns. Maybe a new head coach changes things, maybe it doesn't. But either way, this is a team whose season has been circling and drained seemingly since its start, and it just only gets worse. And now they have to continue the rest of the season without Amari Cooper. I guess consolation prize, you get Nick Chubb back, so there is that. And with that, that will do it for this week's 6th edition of Throwing in a Towel. I'm Dougie Doug. Thank you so much for watching.